Hi everyone, I wanted to go ahead and provide some commentary on this Tier 11 Delve that I soloed today. This was day 1 of the Season 1 release. So my gear is not the best or optimized. I think I'm at 598 item level when I cleared this on solo. It took me, I think this was my 3rd attempt. As you can see, I'm doing earth crawl mines here. This is kind of the first delve that you get introduced to when you start the expansion. One thing to note when you're doing higher level delves, Bran does a ton of damage. If you notice there, I was literally only using heroic throw on that mob and was doing over 1 million damage. It's all Bran damage. But as you can see here, I decided I'm gonna face tank one of these mobs. This is just a slasher, and it's doing very high damage to me through even like shield block and ignore pain. Not using any cooldowns here like Demo Shout or Avatar. Figured I could just solo tank one of them. Ended up having to kind of cut it out a little bit. So that's one thing. I ended up having to do a decent amount. Some stuff I could face tank. It kind of depends on the mob, what cooldowns I have available. All that kind of stuff. So, but another kind of side effect of this max level delve is that Bran's egg, the epic egg that he drops that spawns a dinosaur when you kill it, the HP is like way higher than it is on lower difficulty, so it actually takes like a little bit longer to kill. So this first area is kind of innocuous, right? Like there's not really a ton of dangerous stuff in here. You know, these like skittering menaces and these ankle biters in this little cubby area here, these are relatively easy to kill. I still used Avatar and Demo Shout. You end up having to treat like a lot of these pulls at this item level as being potentially pretty dangerous. So fortunately, one advantage of Prot Warrior is that your cooldowns are really short, particularly Demoralizing Shout, so you should definitely be using it like on cooldown pretty much whenever it's available. So here, just kind of, doing the basic stuff, clearing through. I can't remember why I was running back here. I might have been swapping. Oh yeah, I was double checking kind of what abilities. I hadn't swapped them really or kind of really looked at them. So I'm kind of like just looking at the different idols that are available from Bran. I kind of considered this one, the Rage-Filled Idol. Bran is really tanky. He doesn't really take a lot of damage from the mobs. In fact, I don't know if some of these like soloing might be easier with like a DPS spec where you just let Bran tank everything, because he could tank a lot of stuff. But kind of decided to end up going with that Iron Idol just as kind of like another, basically a mini defensive cooldown. If you drop below 40% health, it'll spawn like I think like an idol on the ground. You'll kind of see it throughout this run that like immediately will taunt any mobs that are like attacking me. Kind of looking at some of the utility curios as well. I end up going with this Amorphous Relic. I think both buffs are good. Like the one buff is like 10% health and 6% damage. The other buff is like 10% haste, I think, or it's like 10% movement speed and 6% haste or something like that. So both buffs are really good, and I think they're just always on whenever you enter combat. But the one you get is kind of random. If I could just always have 10% health and 6% damage, that's the one I would pick. But you know exactly what to choose with that one. It's a little bit random. But I think both are like pretty good. Like 6% haste is pretty nice, especially like at these gear levels. So obviously probably should have done that at the start of the at the delve instead of kind of going back here at the beginning. But it was something I thought of when I was doing it. But as you can see here, I decided, I'm like, I'm going to go in, I've got, you know, cooldowns available, and I'm going to just face tank this. And these mobs they hurt. Like, even with shield block, demo shout, ignore pain, mobs are doing a ton of damage. You can see that little kind of like, you know, geometric object on the ground. That's the object that taunts or whatever. So, and even here, like, one thing to keep in mind, a lot of these abilities, you probably weren't noticing them on lower level delves because they don't really do anything. But like that wide swipe just chunked me for like, you know, did about 20-30% of my health through a shield wall. And then those Nerubian, I think it's, as you can see there, I basically ate a bunch of swipes, and that's what killed me. Those swipes you can actually avoid. They have a really short range, and the captain will stop when he's doing the swipe. So you can actually like outrange it. It's super short. It's like 5 yards or something like that because it's basically a melee attack. You could probably even like run through the mob as well. You just have to be careful you're not like turning your back on like other mobs. So I end up here just pulling the boss, or the mob. I'm calling it a boss. Feels like a boss. I end up pulling the mob just, you know, with like heroic throw and letting Bran essentially like solo it. And as you can see here, all that damage, that's all. So, the Webbed Aegis, it's not only a shield. I realized I looked over the buff here. It also increases his damage by 25%. So definitely want to make sure he's not getting Webbed Aegis off if you are tanking him directly, if you're like fighting him. But you can just get out the cast. These Swarmers, they do like a charge, and the charge, I actually get hit by one of them in this run later on. You want to try to make sure you never get hit by the charges at this high of a difficulty if they do a ton of damage. You can either sideswipe them if they're targeting you. You can also stun to interrupt them as well. As you can see here, I think we actually use like a lot of stuns. Well, I at least use shield charge once. And then we come to this room. I'm kind of checking for mini bosses. Fortunately, Stolen Loader is actually like one of the easiest mini bosses in this entire delve. So this is actually pretty lucky because this is as you're gonna see here, this is a very easy like mini boss to kill, and it's got like a pretty good ability to pick up to have for like the delve. So part of what makes it so easy is that one of his abilities is this cone, so you just stand out of it and it won't hit you. And then the Magma Hammer, you can actually, as a warrior, spell reflect, as you see there, so it's like a little bit of extra damage and doesn't do any damage to you. And if you're not a warrior, you can just interrupt it. So, but yeah, and he doesn't really hit, like, as you can see, my health bar isn't moving, you know. Whereas a lot of these other mobs, like even their auto attacks, like they're literally like trucking me for, you know, 20-30% of my health, even through like shield blocking and ignore pain. But here, this guy's he's basically a pushover. Bran will also execute a lot of the times on these mobs. As you can see there, he was at like 20 or 30% health, and Bran just, you know, straight up killed him. It's not like an execute, like a warrior execute. It's actually more like touch of death, I think. I guess touch of death is maybe the closest comparison. Basically, you just literally just one taps the mob essentially. So. But when you're doing these higher level delves, it's really important to kind of see what mini bosses are in what areas. There's actually a mini boss in that back corner over there. We'll see it in a minute. But because it's out of the way, I actually don't have to kill that mini boss, and I'm just gonna skip it. But sometimes you can get the mini bosses actually directly in your path, and there's not really a way to skip them. You end up having to kind of do them. So you can see here, I'm like kind of just charging this pack. This is a pack with like a bunch of slashers. And these things, as you can see, hurt a lot. So I kind of just face tank them for a little bit and then just shockwave and walk away essentially. And then we're just freeing these miners. definitely want to make sure we're not spawning anything extra from these webs. At the higher difficulty of delves, you can actually start spawning like the harder mobs. Like you won't just spawn like the little spiders, you can spawn some of the bigger spiders that are a little bit more dangerous. I think here I'm waiting for cooldowns. That's one thing with delves, since it's untimed, sometimes you can do things like this. You can wait like for cooldowns to come up or whatever. I ended up deciding just to pull. I figured just like demo shout's just good enough. The only dangerous mob in this pack is the captain, obviously. But as you can see here, I'm still taking a pretty decent amount of damage. And to be honest, these mobs are doing way more damage than like I did like a Mythic Zero World Tour, and those mobs do way more damage than like anything in any of the Mythic Zeros we're doing. So, but this was a pretty fun. I actually had a lot of fun doing this. It was super interesting. I actually had to like think on my feet a lot, kind of flex using like all of my abilities. Different ways to approach like the packs. You know, there's all sorts of different options kind of available. So it was super fun. I'm really hoping they like kind of keep the difficulty kind of where it's at. I don't know if that's going to be a problem. So as you can see here, that skitter charged for that swarmer. I was kind of worried he would actually pull that backpack. You can kind of see the mini boss padding around in the back there, but he ended up not doing it. Yeah, I'm enjoying the challenge. I did kill Zekfir on tier 1 on the lowest tier of difficulty. He was really easy on that tier. I tried killing him on the next tier up. It was brutal. It was absolutely completely brutal. And I don't know if it's doable specifically because I don't feel like I have enough damage at the moment. The way the things line up on Zekfir with like his abilities and stuff at that high of a like, you know, at that tuning made it like basically there's like an ad that you can prevent from spawning if you have high enough damage, and a lot of times it just ended up not happening. But as you can see here, I'm kind of doing this pull, and even with shield wall up, those mobs were hitting super hard. You know, I went in, charged in, demo shouted. After demo shout, used shield wall. Still, mobs are still trucking me super hard. I pull this Nerubian Lord down, specifically because of Leeching Swarm. So Leeching Swarm on lower difficulties was actually chunking me really hard if I got clipped by it at all. So I didn't want to fight him on the ramp and that's Leeching Swarm right there. So those green circles, if you get even just like, for just like a brief second you're in it, it will hit you really hard. So I didn't want to kind of be, you know, I didn't want to like be on the stairs to try and like dodge like the Leeching Swarm or whatever, or even just risking getting clipped by it. Because like I said, on lower difficulties, it was chunking me pretty hard. It wasn't one-shotting me, but it was probably doing, I would say, like 50 to 60% of my health. I could see just a bad swarm ending up, you know, killing me. I'm kind of running around and clicking on these curios. I really shouldn't be. I didn't realize when I was doing this delve that you only get experience for Bran on bountiful delves, and this is obviously not a bountiful delve. I'm just doing this as like just a regular delve, just to see if I can do it. But I didn't know that at the time, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna go and like click on all these, like, you know, curiosities and chests and things like that. I really shouldn't be. They have like a couple resonance crystals and like 2 or 3 gold, so it's not worth the time at all. This chest is worth clicking. It does have a buff on it, but it's not a very good buff. It doubles my health, which obviously is good, like, but the problem is as soon as you dip below half health, you just lose the buff. Which in this, obviously, as you can see, the mobs absolutely trucking me. I'm gonna lose the buff like super, pretty quick here. So this pack actually, I think I end up managing a lot better. I end up like outranging, I think, all of the swipes that the captain does. does. So as you can see, like I'm not really taking like very much damage. These Fearmongers aren't super dangerous, even on this difficulty. You can just outrange the fear. I think even with Berserker Rage as a warrior, I think even if you pre-pop Berserker Rage and you stand in the swirly, I think it will kill you or do a bunch of damage anyways. So here I'm going to get hit by this Swarmer, by that charge. As you can see, absolutely, I was at full health, did like 80% damage to me. I don't think I had any defensives up. I didn't have demo or shield wall or anything like that, but still, just you can't get hit by that charge. It will just absolutely decimate you. And I almost got knocked off of the bridge, which would have been really bad. So here I think I do a little bit better job like outranging the swipes. As you can see, I'm kind of hovering like right outside melee range, trying to like make sure I'm like getting my hits in. Here I actually get hit, but as you can see, the arc is pretty big, so I end up getting hit by that swipe, even sidestepping. So I think it's actually even better just to back up. Even just S key is better, I think, than trying to like swivel side to side. Again, you could, I think, in theory, run through the mob would work, but it's pretty bad sometimes to run through as a warrior because you never want like your shield block to come down. So yeah, so I'm kind of face tanking this, but as you can see here, even with Demo Shout and shield block and ignore pain, these mobs like sometimes they just absolutely truck, and I that maybe is like the Zekfir empowered thing. I actually didn't look and see exactly what the Zekfir empowerment does, and then here I kind of have, after this pack up here, this Fearmonger and this Captain pack end up going fine, but after this pack I kind of have like a little sequence and comedy of errors basically that I just, things I wasn't aware of. Well, one thing I wasn't aware of and another thing that I died when I shouldn't have, but it's not this pack. This pack is handled pretty reasonably well, so yeah, so I'm assuming that Ascension is his Zekfir ability. I don't know exactly what it does. I'm assuming it's bad. I'm assuming you don't want it to happen. So I found out the checkpoints in the delves, you have to actually run close to them to turn them on. I don't run close to it here, so I didn't turn it on, which is bad because I'm going to die on this next pack, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident at this point. These next two packs, they're relatively easy. There's nothing like too crazy or anything like that. I'm doing a pretty good job, dodging the bolts, but end up getting chunked really hard here. I'm actually not sure what is hitting me so hard. I wall here, I use Impending Victory. I get hit by this dot, and I Impending Victory the egg, but what I should have done is I should have either hit Last Stand or a Healing Potion, or I didn't even realize I had health stones from the Mythic Dungeons I was doing earlier. So I had three things that would have let me get through that dot. I just completely didn't press any of them, so definitely just a mistake on my part for sure. And here I'm kind of a little bit tilted because I'm back at the beginning, because remember how I said you have to run past, like you have to run next to the stone to trigger the checkpoint? I didn't do that, so I've got to run all the way back. It's a little bit of a run, so and whenever I'm kind of hovering over the damage meter, I'm not looking at my own damage, I'm actually looking at Brand's damage, because Brand does a ton of damage at this level. Like, he's straight up responsible for probably 70 to 80% of the damage that I end up doing. So, overall, I would literally not be surprised if that was the count. I don't have an overall damage count like for this particular delve or whatever, I just have the current damage on, but just the fact that like when I'm having to like kite and move away from mobs, he just continues to damage. So that mini boss down there, that I can't remember what his name is, but that like spider lord, it's and something. He will spawn spikes that will like kind of chase you. You have to move away from the spikes. If you get hit by one of the spikes, the swirlies on the ground, it will kill you. But the spikes, after they spawn, if you run into them, will also kill you. You have to be really aware of that. It's not like a hard boss per se, or a hard mini boss, but you kind of have to just be aware of the fact that both the swirlies and the spikes will straight up one shot you. Like, curiosities, thinking I can get XP or something from it. Just kind of repairing here, make sure like my shield's not going to break on the boss or something like that. So this is the last pack. End up using cooldowns on this pack again. Just trying to be as like safe as I can. Pretty much every pack. Probably didn't have to avatar. Probably could have been good. Just using like demo shower to make sure because now I'm going to wait for all my cooldowns to come up. I only have 1 life left, so I don't want to like die in the boss. I'm really set to get to the end here and then go in and just wipe on this boss. So a couple things on this boss. The Web General does 3 casts. It does Web Bolt. It does a Curse of Agony, I believe is the name of the cast, and then also Shackles. Curse of Agony, I think it's Curse of Agony. It's a really hard-hitting knot, so you want to try to make sure it doesn't get Runic Shackles is also a really hard-hitting ability, and it roots you as well. It's a dot as well as a root. And he does it. He will cast it every time after pulling a card across a trunk. So you definitely want to make sure you are stopping the shackles in some way. Web bolts do a lot of damage on this difficulty, but my plan is to use a combination of like spell block and spell reflect to stop as many of those web bolts as I can. I'm kind of looking at talents. I'm like kind of like, do I want second wind? Because I'm going to be taking the boss the whole time or whatever. What I really should have done is dropped Rumbling Earth for the Bounding Stride, the reduced cooldown on Heroic Leap. Rumbling Earth literally does nothing on this boss, so, but either way. All right, so we're going to pull this boss here. I can't remember what I was kind of waiting for there, but Bran interrupts the first web bolt here, and I'm going to spell reflect the next one. Actually, I actually didn't know if you could spell reflect Curse of Agony. You can. So as you can see, there's the dot on the boss, and so he's like taking some damage from that Curse of Agony. And more importantly, it's not on me. So, and then after that, I pretty much just popped spell block. Now I'm interrupting Runic Shackles. And then yeah, I'm pretty much just going to try to use spell reflect on cooldown here. And then interrupt like Curse of Agony if I don't have spell reflect up. But as you can see, even the web bolts like are hitting pretty hard if I don't have any sort of mitigation up, and my spell block actually just fell down. So I'm getting chunked pretty hard here. I make a really bad play here. I leapt. It was such a bad leap because I leapt literally in the path of the card, so I ended up having to run into the webs there. Fortunately, I didn't really get punished. I did pop 2 cooldowns, which was just panicking and a mistake for sure, because I ended up popping both Shield Wall and Last Stand, and I probably just would have been fine with Shield Wall. But overall, the boss is not too difficult. Kind of just weaving spell reflex in conjunction with like defensive cooldowns and making sure to keep Ignore Pain up as much as I can. So, and then again, after a cart, he'll just cast Runic Shackles. You just want to make sure Runic Shackles doesn't go off. And then spell block actually came back up, managed to spell reflect that Curse of Agony, and now he's pretty much dead. And that's Earthcrawl Mines solo on a Protection Warrior with a 598 item level on day 1. A lot of fun. Definitely a lot of things I could have done better, I think, in this delve, but it was, kind of a fun learning experience for sure. So and then we'll check out the loot. Got this cosmetic raptorial spine. I don't know if that's specific to the delve or the difficulty or whatever. You know, it's a cosmetic, I guess. I didn't think it looked super cool, but it was what it was. So, but thanks everyone for watching, and go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this.